So, in this lecture on data analysis and data handling and analytics, in the first part we focused mostly on data handling, and in the second part we are going to focus mostly on the analytics. So, having captured the data and storing it in the cloud or in the server or whatever storage mechanisms we have, we now have to use the data. For using it, we have to analyze it. We have to analyze the data. So, for this there are different tools, different methodologies that are there. The most common, the most primitive ones are based on statistical methods. So, basic statistical methods can be applied on the stored data in order to make more sense out of that data, in order to get more insight into that data that is stored. So, we have data analytics. So, basically the data have to be analyzed. So, in the context of IoT, people talk a lot about data analytics. So, what is this data analytics? I am going to read one of these definitions. So, data analytics is the process of examining the data sets in order to draw conclusions about the information they contain. That means, what information is contained in these data sets, increasingly with the aid of specialized systems and software. So, with different specialized software systems, etc., to get insight into the data that is existing. Data analytics technologies and techniques are widely used in commercial industries to enable organizations to make more informed business decisions, and by scientists and researchers to verify or disprove the scientific models, theories and hypotheses. So, this is basically the premise in which data analytics work, and the different concerns of data analytics are basically are mentioned in this particular definition. So, when we talk about analysis in general, broadly analysis comes in two forms. So, we can either perform qualitative analysis on the data that has been obtained, or we can perform quantitative analysis. So, qualitative analysis basically deals with the analysis of data that are categorical in nature. So, qualitative analysis, whereas quantitative analysis refers to the process by which numerical methods can be used, numerical data can be analyzed through quantitative analysis. So, categorical data, qualitative analysis is good enough. For numerical data, quantitative analysis, quantitative methods are useful. So, qualitative analysis, data is not described through numerical values, but are described by some sort of descriptive context such as text. This qualitative data can be gathered by many methods, such as from interviews, interviewing different people, from videos, from audio recordings, field notes, industry manuals and so on. This data needs to be interpreted. The grouping of the data should be performed into identifiable themes in qualitative analysis, and the qualitative analysis can be summarized by three basic principles: notice the things, collect the things and think about the things. We do not need to get into details of each of these. The next one is the quantitative analysis. So, quantitative analysis is on the numeric data using different statistical methods such as descriptive statistics, more specifically finding out the mean of the data set, median, standard deviation and so on. The following are often involved with the quantitative analysis: statistical models, analysis of variance, then data dispersion, analysis of relationship between variables, contingency and correlation, then regression analysis, statistical significance, precision, error limits and so on. So, these are the different quantitative methods that are used for quantitative analysis of data. Now comes the comparison between qualitative data and quantitative data. So, qualitative data can be mostly observed, whereas quantitative data can be measured. Qualitative data involves descriptions, it is more qualitative, it involves descriptions. On the other hand, quantitative data involves numbers, numerics and so on. Whereas in qualitative data the emphasis is on quality, in the quantitative data the emphasis is on quantity. Examples of qualitative data include color, smell, taste, etc., which cannot be quantified so easily. On the other hand, quantifiable data include volume, weight, etc. These are numbers, these are figures which can be used to perform different numerics. The advantages of data analytics is that it allows for the identification of important trends. It helps the businesses identify performance problems that require some sort of action. Some prediction can be performed by analysis of the data, past data, something, so the businesses, they can understand that what has gone wrong quantitatively, they can be done, or even qualitatively. So, data analytics are useful for that. So, the analytics can also be performed in a visual manner, and that can help in faster and better decision making. Analytics can provide a company with an edge over their competitors. So, that is the reason actually data analytics has become very popular in the industry, not only in the industry, almost in all spheres of life data analytics has become very popular, and because you can get more insight into what is going on in the processes that are occurring around you. Different models of statistical models can be adopted in order to perform quantitative analysis, and a statistical model is defined as the mathematical equation that is formulated to form the relationship between variables. A statistical model illustrates how a set of random variables is related to another set of random variables, and it is a statistical model is represented as an ordered pair xp, where x denotes the set of all possible observations and p refers to the set of probability distributions on x. Statistical models are broadly categorized as complete models and incomplete models. Complete models have the same number of variables as the number of equations. So, the number of equations and the number of variables in the complete models are the same. So, if we have the number of variables equating with the number of equations, what we have is a complete model, and in an incomplete model the number of variables and the number of equations are not the same, they do not match. So, in order to build a statistical model, it is required to gather the data, perform descriptive methods, think about what are the predictors, then build the model and then interpret the results. Analysis of variance, in short known as ANOVA analysis, is a parametric statistical technique that can be used to compare two data sets, two or more data sets, they can be compared. So, ANOVA is best applied when more than two populations of samples are meant to be compared. So, we have one data set, we have another data set, we want to compare these two populations to see that what is the how much is the correlation between these two data sets, what sort of similarity exists between these two data sets. So, to perform ANOVA, one has to have a continuous response variable and at least one categorical factor, for example, age, gender, etc., with at least two or more levels, example location 1, location 2, etc. So, what it means is basically levels means that one location Kharagpur, another location Kolkata. So, these are two different locations corresponding to two different levels, and categories means the age is one category. So, with respect to a particular category like age, so at two different locations, what is the similarity or what is the dissimilarity? similarly with respect to gender or any other category. ANOVA requires data from approximately normally distributed populations. So, this is a very important assumption or a very important requirement that so normal distribution is required for performing normal distribution of the data set has to be there in order to perform ANOVA analysis. The properties to perform ANOVA, one is the independence of case. The sample that is selected should be randomly selected. There should not be any bias, there should not be any pattern in the selected sample. Normality is the second property, which concerns the distribution of each group should be normal. So, normal distribution of the data within the group, and homogeneity, which concerns variance between the groups, and the variance should be the same. So, we should not have a scenario to compare the data from cities with the data from maybe slum areas, or maybe the data of Kharagpur compared with the data of Kolkata. So, because we have a town, we have a city, so two different data sets comparing with each other. So, they have huge variance, and the variance should be as much minimal as possible. Analysis of variance has three different types. One-way analysis, which concerns one fixed factor. For example, the factors could be age, gender, etc. Could be two-way analysis, where two factors are going to be involved. So, maybe both age and gender would be considered in a two-way ANOVA analysis, and it can be k-way analysis, where k factor variables are involved. Then there are different ways, different features that are there for performing analysis of variance. Total sum of square is one, F ratio is another, and the degree of freedom. So, all of these things have to be taken into consideration in order to perform analysis of variance. I am not going to go through these, because this is not essentially a course in statistical methods, and these are all available. But what is important is that ANOVA analysis can be used in order to perform analytics on the data that is obtained from IoT systems. The next concept that has to be understood is data dispersion. Data dispersion concerns how much is the dispersion. That means, so dispersion is basically a measure of the statistical. So, it is a measure of the statistical dispersion, a non-negative real number, that is 0 if all the data are the same, and it increases as the data becomes more diverse. Examples of dispersion measures include range, average absolute deviation, variance, and standard deviation. So, typically when we talk about dispersion, we typically talk about in terms of variance and standard deviation. So, how much they deviate from the norm, So, this is what dispersion concerns. So, here as I already mentioned, so range and what is meant by it, the absolute standard deviation is given. So, the average absolute deviation is given, variance and standard deviation, these are well known methods of data dispersion measuring, and these are given over here. Next comes the contingence and correlation. So, in statistics, a contingency table is a type of table in a matrix format that displays the multivariate frequency distribution of the variables, and it provides a basic picture of the interrelation between two variables. Correlation is a technique for investigating the relationship between two quantitative continuous variables. So, they have to be continuous variables, this is very important, and how much they are correlated, these two variables, how much they are correlated, and what is the relationship between them. So, a popular measure is the Pearson's correlation coefficient, and it basically measures the strength of association between two variables. Then comes regression analysis. So, regression analysis basically tries to estimate the relationship among the different variables. It focuses on the relationship between a dependent variable and one or more independent variables. So, we have a dependent variable and we have an independent, we have one or more independent variables, and how the dependent variable relates to one or more of these variables taken at a time or taken together. So, regression analysis estimates the conditional expectation of the dependent variable given the independent variables. The estimation target is a function of the independent variables called the regression function. It characterizes the variation of the dependent variable around the regression function, which can be described by a probability distribution. So, regression analysis is helpful in different ways. It can be used to understand how the independent variables are related to the dependent variable one at a time or taken together. Statistical significance is important. It basically measures the likelihood that the difference in conversion rates between given variation and the baseline is not due to any random chance. So, statistically how much the the results are significant is something that has to be measured. So, statistical significance basically reflects the risk tolerance and the confidence level. So, how much is the confidence on the results that are obtained. So, this is measured through statistical significance. So, typically there are two key variables that are required for determining statistical significance. One is the sample size, the other one is the effect size. The sample size refers to the sample size of the experiment. The larger the sample size is, the more confident one can be on the result of the experiment, and the effect size is just the standardized mean difference between the two groups. So, if a particular experiment is replicated, the different effect size estimates from each study can easily be combined to give an overall best estimate of the effect size. Precision and error limits are important. So, precision basically concerns how close the estimates are from the different samples for the different samples to each other. The standard error is a measure of the precision. When the standard error is small, the estimates from the different samples will be close in value and vice versa. So, precision is inversely related to the standard error. So, this precision and error, they come hand in hand. The limits of the error and the overestimate and the underestimate are taken into consideration while considering the error limits. So, as I was mentioning at the outset, that there are different statistical tools, the traditional statistical tools like correlation analysis, regression analysis, analysis of variance can be used in order to understand or to get insight on the data that is obtained, that is collected. But these are the basic analytic methods, and what we have not discussed over here, and we have intentionally confined ourselves to not discussing things like how text can be analyzed, textual data, or how video data can be analyzed and so on. So, that requires video data, images can be analyzed and so on. So, different other types of data can be analyzed. So, this we have intentionally not discussed, because that requires specialized training in text processing, video processing, image processing and so on, and we do not want to get into the depth of those type of analytics. So, these are the references, and so with this we come to an end, and as I was mentioning before, data handling, data analytics are very crucial in the context of IoT, because lot of data gets generated in the IoT domain, and these data not only have to be analyzed, but prior to analyzing they have to be handled. They have to be handled using technologies such as cloud, they have to be handled with technologies such as Hadoop and so on. And once they are handled, that means the data have been stored, they have been cleaned and stored and so on, then they have to be analyzed. For analysis we have these different statistical methods, we have different other methods based in machine learning, image processing, video processing, text processing and so on. So, those are advanced methods which we do not cover in this particular lecture. in this particular course. So, thank you.